So today's Cardinal lesson, we're talking about what Tom and I feel is the biggest reason that people come in and hire us to plan out their retirement. The biggest worry of all the worries. And they don't come out with this right in the beginning, but as we get to know them, what's underlying all the fears is running out of money and running out of money late in life, where they're in their 80s or 90s, or just one of them has survived into that point, and they're a widow or widower, and they live a long time with diminishing resources. And that scares people many times more than passing away. At an early age, is they've just got the fear of like running out of money. And so that causes a lot of behaviors. And then there's the other people that don't have any fear of any of it, and they're not really conscious of it. And so they don't do retirement planning, and they just kind of go along, look at their accounts, make some small decisions as they go. And those are the kind of people that maybe they don't get down to zero, but they start getting down in their late 70s, early 80s, where they've got enough that they don't think it's enough to last their whole retirement. And that just puts people in a bad place. And so, what we're going to talk about today is how people get there. What are some of the things that cause them to run out of money? And then, of course, what you can do about it. And I want to bring Tom on to talk about really why we're doing this video.
Yeah, I mean, I think we do all these videos on these different topics, but if we had to really boil it down to one thing that is underlying everything we do, it's this fear. It's this fear of running out of money. And sometimes it's the lack of fear of running out of money. And almost a bigger problem, because then people are making decisions and behaving in a way that's maybe not the most thoughtful. So really what we want to do today is go through sort of a list of, the 10 things we sort of identified are ways to run out of money, and try to help give you some context of things that we, from a planning standpoint, can do to help prevent that. I am going to bring up the show notes here real quick. There's not a lot of details in today's show notes. It's really just the board. But if you want to, we have a lot of clients that will print it out. They'll take notes on it, and you can see it a little bit better than what the board is on that there. And so we'll hand it back to John, and then or Hans, and we'll kind of go down the board here.
Okay. So the first one is spending principal early. These are people that have a big hunk of money, a lot of times in an IRA. They got to pay taxes on every dollar that comes out of that. And they spend too much in their 60s and 70s. And it maybe isn't affecting them in the right here and now. And they'll rationalize a lot of it is I want to spend it while I'm young, enjoy it while I'm young. I'll let later worry about later. And people are entitled to make their own decisions. I want to hear what Tom has to say about number one.
Yeah, I mean, so these are the people that go through and maybe aren't real worried about running out of money, and they want to enjoy it. They retire. They say, you know what, I want to enjoy it now. The future, there's no guarantee of the future, and they spend it that way. And if you have enough, that's fine. And I think there's some level of that's appropriate. I mean, as you get into your 80s, you're not going to be spending as much, but the risk here is going too far, spending too much early, which really hampers you from having enough to just, really pay the bills later in life, and you're really trying to just live off your Social Security. So there's a line there that, we want you to enjoy your money. We encourage a lot of our clients to spend more than they're spending because they've done a good job saving, but there needs to be a balance there. There needs to be some control over spending too much, and spending money early. And especially, and we'll get into this later in the video, but a lot of these are interrelated, and it's really the mix of two or three of these happening that really cause people to run out of money. But this is a big one: is if you spend money too early in retirement, paired with some of the other things that happen, it can be a real problem for later in retirement.
So the next one, long-term care. And with long-term care, I'm not necessarily talking about going to a nursing home or assisted living. Long-term care can take place at home. A lot of it does. And especially if this happens early, like in the 60s or the 70s is real common, where one spouse gets sick and you just add $6,000-7,000 a month, $8,000 a month to your otherwise added budget. This will drain. And if it happens in the 80s, Yet, this is just going to drain your savings like faster than you can imagine. So, what do you have to say, Tom?
I mean, I think I agree. I think this of everything on the board is potentially the most impactful. If something like this happens, this will be the biggest cause of running out of money, just because the cost of needing care is so high that even if you have a lot of money, you can wipe through a lot of savings very quickly if you need an extended period of long term care.
Yeah. So, the third one, healthcare costs. This is one, especially for people turning 65, that's in their mind more than reality. If you've got Medicare and you have good Medicare insurance, you don't have much to worry about here. Is that people in their mind think they're going to be wiped out with hospital and medical costs if some serious illness hits them. Um, what they're doing a lot of times is packaging in long-term care. We're talking about something separate than that. So let's jump on to taxes. Income taxes, poorly timed, can really put a dent in a fortune, and it just kind of ties into um, number 6 here, where a lot of people at retirement in their 60s, the bulk of their savings is in a pre-tax account, and they haven't really thought about the fact in order to get to any of that money, I got to pay taxes, and if I get to a lot of it in any one year, I'm going to pay a lot of taxes. I mean, I'm going to just throw me up into a huge bracket, and things happen during retirement where you'll have an immediate need for a lot of cash. It could be something with your family, it could be something with you, it could be a large expense, it could be you have to replace your cars, be all kinds of things where you have to go get a bunch of money out at once and pull the taxes out of that account. So, anyhow, number 4, taxes can be a big problem that can be a driver of running out of money. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the biggest issue and mistake that we see a lot of people make is they get to retirement, all of their savings are in their IRAs or 401ks, or at least most of it, and they want to make that big purchase. They want to buy that boat. They want to buy that vacation home or whatever it might be, and they take a huge chunk out. They get killed in taxes, so that means they have to take even more out to pay to cover the taxes. And again, you pair that with the investment performance. We'll get to that at number 7 here in a second. Paired with taking Social Security early, I mean that can have a real drain on the account. Every dollar you pay in taxes is a dollar you don't have to spend, and so we want to be thoughtful in how we withdraw money so we don't pay it all back in taxes. And so that is definitely a risk.
So, people that take Social Security, we'll just say early, short of 67, short of 70. We're not saying this is bad, we're just including it in the reasons here. Is when you take it before full retirement or even before 70, it may make sense logically when you're just looking at Social Security, but we see this as a driver that people live off a diminished Social Security check for the whole of their retirement. It's going to cause them to spend their other money, and it's a driver in running out of money. Tom?
And this becomes really impactful is, let's say someone took it at 62, and maybe it's because they didn't have a lot of other savings, or they had a modest amount, and then they're invested aggressively in the market. They take some losses there. They've reduced their Social Security income for the rest of their lives. Eventually, they run out of their other money. Now they're trying to live off this reduced check for the rest of their life, and they have no other resources, and it becomes a real problem. And so, I mean, again, this needs to be part of an overall plan, because there's some clients we do recommend they take early. But if we can delay it, the longer we delay it, the higher check there is. And again, the higher check is guaranteed for the rest of your life. So even if you do run out of money, at least you have a higher check coming in to help support your lifestyle.
Number 6, we've already talked about. Number 7, investment losses. I mean, that's kind of speaks for itself, is that people get lulled into, especially with the bull market we had prior to 2022, they get lulled into thinking they're going to just make these high returns year after year after year, and then all of a sudden 2022 happens. Tom?
Yeah, and again, and the reason for this is the sequence of returns risk. And so, if you have questions about that, reach out. But essentially, what that says is if you're pulling money out to live off of at the same time that the market's going down, then it is much harder to make up those gains. When you were still working and you weren't pulling money out, it didn't really matter when the gain, what years there were gains, what year there were losses. Over time, it averaged out that the market went up, and that's why you have the savings you do. That changes, the math changes when you start pulling money out. When you're pulling money out, not only does the market go down, but you're pulling it out to live off of, it further reduces the account balance, and it can be very impactful to the life of that money, especially if it happens early in retirement. That's why we have clients getting less risky as they approach retirement, because they can ill afford to have a big loss right when they're starting to live off this money.
So extended family support, and we, we don't want to be here to just tell you how to spend your money. Or we're also saying take care of your family. When your family has a problem and you have the resources to help them, help them. What we're just saying is that when we get to these people that are getting very low on resources, late 70s and 80s, we're going to find sometimes it's one of their children that is draining them, is coming to them, and they're coming back and they're coming back. And so we just want to list this as a reason. We're not necessarily telling you not to do it. Tom?
I mean, I think that that's right. Is we want to be careful that, you know, as a family, we're called to help each other, but there needs to be some boundaries around that. And if it's unchecked, this could be a big cause of why you've run out of money. And so again, we're not telling you on this video, don't help your family. Just know that if you do this, over and over and over again such an extent as it could have negative impact on your ability to enjoy retirement. So again, just you need to be thoughtful on how you help your family there.
So long life. I mean, we have all kinds of, oh, I'll be gone by the time I'm 75 or 80 or younger than that. Um, and then the reality is modern medicine, they took care of themselves better, whatever. They lived to 85, 90 years old, and they live far, and they spent their money like they were going to be gone at 75. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big unknown in the planning is how long you're going to live. And so when we have clients that say, I'm going to be dead at, we'll pick 75 in this example, and they spend their money that way, if they're gone at 75, great, they did exactly what they wanted. The problem is if they don't and they've spent all their money, now they become accustomed to a lifestyle that they can't support because they spent all their money. And so when we're doing planning, we want to take the long-term approach. We want to make sure you have the funds to be able to, live a long life. I think the medicine is getting better. I mean, if you just look at life expectancy, it's increased pretty drastically from when your parents or your grandparents were around. And so family history is a factor. We can take that into some consideration, but don't base all your decisions solely off that, because there's a chance that it might not play out that way. And if you're wrong, it can be really, really hurtful to your retirement.
Yeah. And number 10 here is one spouse dies significantly before the other one passes on. And there's a long life of the surviving widower. And, there's really two things going on, two major things going on. Number one is this survivor is going to live off of one Social Security check, not two. And the second thing going on is you're going to be at single tax brackets. So taxes go up significantly on a similar income. So, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely can be a big problem, just for the points Hans mentioned. I mean, the income, there's a reduction in income, the taxes go up, and the expenses are not cut in half. They might go down a little bit, but your spending doesn't really change that much when the first spouse passes away. And so you pair all those things together, and if you have not planned well, it can be a real problem for that surviving spouse. The other point I'll make is it's really not, any one of these can be the problem. When we in our practice, we're dealing with a lot of retirees who have got to that point where they're starting to really worry about, they might not be down to zero yet, but they're getting pretty close. It's a mix of all these things. It's making bad choices and decisions in three or four of these that compound on each other to really cause you to run out of money. And that's where the plan, when we're doing the planning, is helpful, is we want to look at all these things, and Hans will talk about ways to mitigate some of these risks in a second. But we want to look at all of them, put a plan together in consideration of all these factors, really to make sure that you're okay going on into retirement, that you don't have to worry about running out of money in your 80s or 90s, and you can just enjoy retirement.
Yeah. So if we go through the 7 worries and the check boxes, and then we take into account these 10 factors that or things, events, or things that happen that cause you to start running out of money. What we've got today is some of the things we do to mitigate these things. Number one is delay Social Security. Even a couple of years makes a big difference. And what we're going to do is we're going to live off of your IRA, which is going to reduce that and spread the taxes out and to cause a larger Social Security check. And then the larger Social Security check is going to last for all of your lifetime. Uh, and so that's Social Security. Medicare, I mean, it's just simple as get a great supplement for medical costs and the fear from healthcare of running out of money. Long-term care, I mean, just get long-term care insurance, get a plan together, get some home health care insurance, even having insurance that'll cover just a year with some short-term care, giving you something to get out of the crisis, because this is the thing that causes people to run out of money is long-term care. 401k IRA, if a lot of your savings is in that, which is most people, we need a plan. We need to spread those taxes out. Roth conversions is to get to a point where we're going to have access to tax-free money later in life. Buying life insurance is that if you buy life insurance and you pay the premiums out of your IRA and you pay the taxes, you can have access to that cash value later in life if you need it, and you can do that on a tax-free basis. And then, really you pay the premiums out of small distributions. So then we move over to income. And really what this business of running out of money late in life, I mean, one of the ways you can prepare for that is by having some of your money in an income annuity that's guaranteed to send you a check for the rest of your life. And so if you live to 98, it pays to 98. If you live to 88, it pays to 88. So you effectively can't run out of an income for life annuity. We do a lot of that with part of people's money. Social Security at 70, so you create a larger check that then lasts the rest of your life. And then we put a lot of our retirees in fixed income and annuities with a fixed income like a MIGA, so that they're not really having to deal with uncertain investment losses coming at the wrong time. We talk about estate. I mean, the first benefactor of any estate for a couple is the spouse survivor, is the one of them that lives longer than the other. And we need to prepare for that. And that's going to be one Social Security check, and they're going to have a single tax filing bracket. And the last one is really taxes. And we do a lot of things to mitigate. We're going to spread IRA distributions over your whole lifetime. We're going to avoid large IRA distributions if that's your primary savings account. We're going to try to build up a separate savings account to pay for one-item things, or perhaps even borrow money and spread the expense over like 5 years, so we can spread the distributions of the IRA over 5 years for a really large expense, and we can spread the taxes. Manage tax on Social Security. We do a lot of Roth conversions for people to manage taxes. And then, of course, life insurance loans to access cash value that's built up inside of life insurance. So we hope we've helped you worry a little less about that. And of course, if you are worrying, take some action. So I want to bring Tom back on. And I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you.